You won. Is there any words you want to say?
He even had the pin, color pin.
Did I do that?
Oh,
Ooh,
yeah!
that was good.
Hey, if you know, you know. You
If
know.
you know, you know.
Congratulations, buddy. That is yours. Enjoy. Spend it wisely, okay?
One more time for
Give
our
it up.
bestest nerd in the house.
Woo!
Fantastic. I love it. All right, so if you're new with us, welcome. My name is Matt. We're excited to have you guys here. We are in the middle of a series called Capital Plus, taking a look at some old school TV shows. So I just need to know what the baseline of knowledge is. How many of you guys have seen Family Matters? You guys are familiar with the show? Okay, awesome. Who's your favorite character in Family Matters? Right, it's Stefan. Did I hear a Stefan? Stefan Urkel. Any Stefan Urkel fans in the house? So obviously, if you've never seen it, it revolves around Steve Urkel. But here's what's crazy. Actually, so here's what we're gonna do tonight. So I hadn't watched it in a long time, and so I started binge watching it on Hulu, which takes longer than it should because I'm too cheap to pay for the plan with no commercials. And it was one of those shows that, like, in my memory, it was awesome. And then I went back and watched it, and it was not. Do any of you have shows like that from your childhood where you're like, man, that was the best movie ever, and then it like comes out on Netflix and you watch it and you're like, I was an idiot when I was a kid. That's all there was to it. Like that is the dumbest show / movie, whatever, like that I've ever seen. Not quite on that status, but there was some interesting themes to it. So we're not going to pull a whole lot out of it. What we were hoping to do with Family Matters was talk about family dynamics, as in like us as a church family, but also like, you know, parents, children, siblings, like actual family, like blood kinfolk, like blood family. So we're going to kind of talk about that tonight. So what we're going to do is kind of take a look at a few clips, make a few general observations from the show that went 9 seasons, 215 episodes, and then I'm going to invite my wife, Amanda, back up, and we're going to do some Q&A. We reached out to different students from some of the different small groups to submit questions, and you guys submitted some awesome questions. And so we're going to do some Q&A based on family tonight, and so we're going to have some fun. Does that sound like a plan? Is that cool with you guys? If I wore glasses, I'm not like, I didn't learn this move. Like this is the natural move. How many glasses wearers in the house? How do you adjust your glasses? From the side? Is this a little more classy to do it from the side? And not like this? I am chopping myself to keep it on my nose. Also the glare. I'm learning I'm going to start taking more. What's the vitamin that keeps you from needing glasses? That one. I'm going to start taking more of that because it's glary up here. It's glary. Anyway, that has nothing to do with anything. Fun fact about Family Matters, okay? It was a spin-off show. You guys know what a spin-off show is? Where like there was one show and then like one either character or scenario happens and it spins off and creates this whole nother show. Does anyone, I will give a gift card to anyone who knows what Family Matters is a spin-off of. Fresh Prince. You're like, I'm going to name the only 90s show. Full House, the other 90s show that you know. No, neither of those. It was, again, this is going to, I can't even explain this properly. Back in the day, we used to watch TV on Friday night when we were kids, and that was like the cool thing to do. It was called TGIF, is when all the best shows were out, and you would work your life around TGIF because you couldn't miss episodes. There weren't like no DVR, no syndication. Like you missed it, and you had to wait till you were grown up, and Netflix came out, and now you can go back and watch it. But it was a spinoff of a show called Perfect Strangers. Exactly, that's what I thought. No one knows Perfect Strangers. It was this crazy, like, Balky. Did I hear a Balky? Okay, you know what's up. So it was this weird show, and they, like, worked in this scenario where Harriet, the mom, had a job that we learned later as an elevator operator, which used to be a real thing. People used to stand in elevators, and you would tell them what floor, and they would push the button, and you would go. And she got let go from that position, and turns out like that's how Family Matters came to be. I have no idea why, but the internet is undefeated, and it'll let me know that. All right. Let's get to the first clip, shall we? It was hard to find good clips of Urkel. We know a lot of stuff about him. He was phenomenal. He had an alter ego. He was the king of the catchphrase, dancing, like persistence, lots of life lessons from Urkel. So here is the best that I could find of an Urkel montage. There you go. Now you know Steve Urkel. That's him in a nutshell. So here's some of the observations I have from this show. Observation number one is this. So I started watching it. It's based around the Winslow family. Carl, who's a police officer in Chicago, and their family. The pilot episode started with an episode where Carl's mom was coming to live with them, and it all wrapped around that. The comic relief was the grandma, and I'm going through the entire first episode, and no Steve Urkel. And I'm like, that's all I remember about the show was Steve Urkel. In episode 1, no Steve Urkel. Episode 2, no Steve Urkel. Episode 3, no Steve Urkel. Episode 4, no Steve Urkel. I'm like, am I taking crazy pills? Like, is this one of those moments where, like, I'm tripping out and I'm remembering something completely wrong, and there is no such thing as Steve Urkel, and like I'm starting to have a panic attack. Episode 5, they do the random cold opening on 90s TV shows where Urkel's in a bath towel talking about his rubber ducky, and then the episode starts. No more Steve Urkel. Rest of the episode. Are you starting to notice a trend? 2 episodes later, episode 7, same thing, random Steve Urkel joke. They kick him out of the house, and then the rest of the episode, no Steve Urkel. This goes on and on and on. So he was cameo in episode 5, cameo in episode 7. Fast forward to episode 12. Season 1, episode 12 was the first episode where Steve Urkel was like actually a character throughout an episode. And this is my conclusion. They would have never made it to season 2 without Steve Urkel. Okay, and here's kind of the connection that I wanted to make with this is if you live with a you're for and no more mentality, that life is going to get boring real quick, super duper quick. So whether that's like your actual like family or that's like your friendship family, like if you live in an insulated bubble where you're not open to outsiders, that storyline gets old real quick. Like no one wants to watch that, no one wants to observe that. And I know I bring this up every single week because it really, really, really matters. If you've never read the Bible before, all of the Bible can be summed up in this one line: love God and love people. Love your, who are you supposed to love? Love your neighbor as how? As you love yourself. So love God, love people. But people that are like, yeah, heard that, don't care. We say this a lot, but like you can't truly know God and you can't truly love God if you don't show love for people. Like you're missing all of it. You don't understand God. You don't understand how he operates. You don't understand his character, his love for the people, his plan for redemption, how he sees you. Like if it's just you and your little bubble, that gets old. And we would have never had Steve Urkel. And so my observation is this, is we need to always be in the job of inviting neighbors. There's a story about this in the Bible, Luke chapter 10, if you're taking notes and you want to look this up later. Luke chapter 10, they start asking Jesus what they have to do to go to heaven, and Jesus kind of responds, and they're like, well, you tell me, like, what do you think? And they're like, I obey all the commandments, this is what I do, and then he goes back and like, what's the greatest commandment? And the guy's like, I got that, it's you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and then love your neighbor as yourself, and they're like, you're spot on. And then the guy does what a lot of us do, and they want like parameters, okay, like, his response was this. His response was, all right, so who's my neighbor then? Are you talking like next door neighbor? Are you talking like anyone on my block? Are you talking about anyone that I know their name? Like define neighbor. And I love Jesus. Like I just love Jesus for a million reasons. I love Jesus on his inability to, he has no time for dumb questions. He doesn't even respond to this question. He's like, so who's my neighbor? Let me tell you a story. And he just goes off into this story that we know as the Good Samaritan. So he's like, have you ever had a question so dumb you didn't know how to respond? It just like takes you back. And you're like, that's sin. I can't say that. I'm supposed to be a nice person. I'm supposed to love you. All right. So there's this story about a guy, and he was a Samaritan. And we hear this, and we're like, oh, Good Samaritan, this is about being a nice person, blah, blah, blah. You don't understand, like, So there was a story about a Samaritan. Like that first sentence, he loses the entire crowd he's talking to. Because the Samaritans were the enemies of the Jewish people. They were a mixed race people that were marrying cross-culturally, and the Jewish people did not like that. And so basically they're saying, let me tell you this story about the people you can't stand. And he lays down all the people that pass him over. The Samaritan gets jumped, left for dead on the side of the road, and he goes through these people like the religious elite. They look at him, and they want nothing to do with him. The Jewish people, they see him, but they see him as a Samaritan, and so they go around. And then they see this Samaritan guy, and he picks him up, and he helps him out, takes him into his home, feeds him, clothes him, bathes him, heals his wounds, all that kind of stuff, and treats him. And so he doesn't really answer, but he gets this idea that, like, hey, let's just cut to the end. The people you hate are your neighbor. So let's not do this negotiating back and forth where, like, people you don't like a lot, or people that make you uncomfortable, or like people that are maybe not nice to you back. Like let's just jump straight to the bottom line. If you're not showing love to people, then you're missing the entirety of the gospel. Because Jesus gave everything for us, and our response is to give everything back to him. And by doing so, the greatest example we can do that is giving everything to other people. And so, again, I know we talk about that every single week, but it bears it because we need to always keep this the main thing. We need to constantly be about other people. And so I'm going to kind of go into the second clip, and then we're going to do some Q&A. So here, let me kind of set up the second clip, right? Again, as I'm watching these episodes, I'm noticing this clear theme. Let me kind of give you all 9 seasons, every single episode, in a 10-second synopsis. The dad gets angry by something stupid that Eddie the son or Steve the neighbor does. It crescendos to an argument, and by the end of the episode, some nice music plays, and they work it all out, and everything's okay again. The end. So let me give you one example. It took forever to find an episode, so I hope you enjoy this as much as I do. Here's an entire episode in 5.5 minutes. Check out this clip. Aww. How many of you guys were like seeing yourself in that story until the end, right? Minus the end. Anyone else like just found yourself in like a whole bunch of trouble for a quote unquote screwdriver of your life? You're just like, what? I'm about to get kicked out of my house because I lost a screwdriver. What's going on? How about anyone in a current argument with a family member, sibling, or someone else that you're just like, I don't even know why? All right, so here's the lesson. Here's the pattern that I started to notice that I think is really important. And obviously, like, we don't have all have like an orchestra that like sees the healing moment about to take place and starts playing the sentimental music and like can feel when hearts are going to be mended back together. But what I loved about it is the family dynamic. They always had a meeting. They always came together, solved their issues, aired their side of the story, waited till things calmed down, and came to a conclusion. And I think for a lot of us, I know myself included, there's been many times where like we'll storm off, and that's just the end of it. And then you wake up the next day. Anyone else been there before? Like you wake up the next day, and you don't know quite what to do with it because there was no resolution the day before. So you don't know like, all right, I slept, so I'm not like furious like I was yesterday, but am I still in trouble? And so you're kind of like walking it out. You don't know if your parents are still mad at you, and you're just kind of like walking on eggshells. And the Bible kind of talks to this a lot. It talks about times like when we come together for communion, for the Lord's Supper. If you come here on Sundays, you might have taken communion with us, which is a remembrance of the time where Jesus had a meal with his disciples. And it says that when we do that, we're supposed to check our heart first. And if there's any unforgiveness, like walk away from that table and go deal with your unrepented sin, and then come back and do things with the Lord with a clean heart. Same thing with temple worship. Before Jesus, you had to present animal sacrifices in temple worship to make you right with God. And in the Bible, it says that if you had an issue with someone else or with a loved one, or if you had unrepented sin, you were supposed to not do that sacrifice. You're supposed to leave, go make it right with that person, and then you can come back and make your sacrifice. And the point that God was trying to make is, listen, if we're just pretending like we can ignore all the issues in life and come to church and pretend like everything's just going to be okay, that's not how it works. And it goes back to the whole dynamic of God designed us to relate with one another. And if we don't make sure that those relationships stay open, that we find some kind of resolution, some kind of healing in those moments, that a lot of the stuff that we do here. So if you've ever asked yourself, man, how come my life isn't getting better and better when I'm giving everything I have on Wednesdays? You have to ask yourself, how is the Thursday through Tuesday going in your life, especially when it comes to your parents? If you're disrespectful or there's all these unresolved conflict, you're causing drama with your friends, you're just at each other's throat, you can't stand your siblings, like whatever that looks like, and that's your every week, Thursday to Tuesday, then you come in on Wednesday and you're like, why isn't my life getting any better? It's because you need to deal with the heart issues. And what I love about that, in that family, they always had the courage to have the difficult conversations.